Joining me now, I'm so thrilled to have Dan Turrentine, Sean Spicer, and Rachel Bade. They are co-hosts of a new and incredible show called The Huddle. It just launched. I have not yet missed an episode. It is so good. Thank you all so much for being here with me.
Thank you, Batya.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, so let's start with you, Dan. Reaction to my monologue.
Oh, Batya, you're spot on so much of it. It's the worst stereotype of the Democratic Party. You have massive fraud, as you said here just now, when it was discovered. And the good news is it was caught pretty early. They said, hey, if you go public with this, we're going to call you racist. And then lastly, the Walz administration, it sounds like the governor, maybe even himself, said, these are important voters to us. So, hey, we got to be careful here because we need them coming up in our races. It's everything people hate about the Democratic Party. And as someone who wants us to win elections, it makes my blood boil.
So, Sean, the Walz piece, you have the Ilhan Omar piece. She held parties at one of the restaurants that was implicated in this fraud. What do you think is going to be the reaction to this from voters? Do you think that this puts the Republicans in a better position?
Well, first of all, thank you for your kind words about the Huddle. Anyone who wants to sign up can always go to the Huddle, the DCHuddle.com, and we'll keep you in the loop as we do it every morning, 8:30 a.m. But I appreciate your constant and continued support for our efforts. So thank you for your kind words. Look, as Dan said, this is just sort of a gift. The question is whether we'll accept it or not, right? The Republican Party sometimes, the Democrats put the ball on the tee, and then we turn away and say, hey, look, there's popcorn for sale. And so we walk away. I just wonder, look, this has all the makings, right? Tim Walz, this is $1 billion of COVID funds that was supposed to be going to children. You can't get better than that, right? That's the, and it got, and Walz knew about it. There are 400 employees, part of his Department of Human Services, that say that he stood in the way of calling it out, that he reprimanded whistleblowers. And then as Dan said, then he said, well, we can't come down on these people because they're voters. It's $1 billion of taxpayer funds that were supposed to help kids. And Ilhan Omar says, you know what? Sometimes when programs like that get instituted quickly, things happen. This isn't things happen like you ordered too many pencils by mistake or you forgot to shut the window on the way out the office door. This is $1 billion, and they go, yeah, you know what? It happens. You know, what do you think was going to happen? And I think that exemplifies the Republican message of why big government has problems, how the Democrats treat tax dollars and turning a blind eye to fraud. So the question is, I think, you know, they served us the ball. Can we return it?
Rachel, you are one of the best sourced journalists in America. What is the scuttlebutt on the Democrats?
No pressure.
Are you hearing anything? Are there any Democrats who understand not just that this is very bad, but that in a way it implicates a lot of the larger problems with how they look at immigration, how they seem to be siding constantly with the immigrants, with the criminal immigrants, but also just with the idea that we should have massive amounts of immigration while working class Americans see that as really undercutting their wages and their American dream?
You know, Batya, if Democrats were smart, they would actually seize on this. They would use this opportunity to say to voters, look, we can call out when something bad is happening, even if it's a minority community. We don't need to be afraid of that. You're not seeing stuff like that happen here in Washington, D.C. I mean, look, you have government workers in Minnesota calling out their own governor saying he is, quote, dishonest. He, quote, lacks ethics. He has misused his leadership, that he punished whistleblowers and even their families for bringing up this fraud scandal. If I'm a moderate Democrat in a swing district, or even a Democratic candidate running in a district where, you know, the Republican might be a little vulnerable, I'm gonna seize on this story. I'm gonna say this is unacceptable. Walz should have done something and sort of decry his leadership. Except you're not hearing that. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And in middle America, again, that's a big missed opportunity for those Democrats, Batya.
So this was a bad story for the Democrats, but we also had this week some sort of good news for the Democrats. We had the Tennessee special election. In a district, Tennessee 7th, that was a Trump plus 22 district, meaning Trump won this district by 22 points. This was a year ago, right? And now you had, look at this result. So Afton Bain, who was the Democrat, she came within 8 points of winning. There were polls that had her down by just 2 points. It turns out she lost by much more than that. But still, I mean, looking at this has to be giving Democrats a sense that they're things are going in the right direction for them. It has a lot of people looking at this, comparing it and combining it with the victories in New Jersey and in Virginia, and saying that really we're kind of sitting on the cusp of a blue wave. Dan, where are you on the blue wave narrative? Do you think this is wish casting, or are we kind of headed in that direction?
I think as we head into 2026, Democrats are cautiously optimistic. Going into this year, there were about 20 Republican seats where the Republican had won in 2024 by 7 points or less. So both parties identified, hey, those are vulnerable members. Right now, what you're seeing is about a 13 to 15% overperformance by Democrats. If that number holds, another about 20 Republicans come on the board. If you want to win the majority, it's much easier to do if you have 40 targets than only 20 targets. And so that's going to impact candidate recruitment, fundraising. It's a virtuous cycle of momentum that can build that's hard to stop if you're the Republicans.
So, Sean, tell me if you think this is wish casting. I think that this narrative about a blue wave is a little overblown, because I think that what we're seeing here really is the fruits of the political realignment. So the Democrats used to represent labor, and the Republicans represented sort of the country club wealthy Americans. It's now the opposite. Most wealthy Americans are now Democrats, and most working class Americans are now Republicans. And the thing about rich people is they show up even on off-year elections. They're much more engaged politically. And so what we're really seeing here is that the Democrats now, because they represent the wealthy and the educated, have a built-in advantage, something that the GOP really needs to start to understand if they want to stay competitive. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a little bit more than that, right? Republicans right now have a low propensity voter problem, meaning that there are people that will go out and walk over hot coals stuffed with Legos to vote for Donald Trump, but won't do it for anybody else. And then, and so that has to get figured out. Two, we have a communication problem, right? The Republican political establishment is built around campaigns that raise a boatload of cash and spend it in the last 6 weeks on broadcast television and cable. That model is broken. Consultants get paid under that model, by the way, 10 to 15% of the buy, and that's why they urge them to continue it. But we've got to remember that most working Americans don't stay attuned in that same way. 365, you know, not just the last 6 weeks. We've got to be talking to people 365, 7 days a week, and also in places that they don't go. We've got to be reaching out to independent media. We've got to be playing an influencer game, much more than that. The big lesson from this election is like going to the doctor, and the doctor says, look, you're not sick yet. It's not that bad. But if you don't make some lifestyle changes, you're going to have some big problems very soon. And so you go back and you course correct. And I hope that what most House Republicans realize is we caught a break in Tennessee. It wasn't as bad as it could have been. It wasn't as good. Afton Bain was a horrible, horrible, horrible candidate. Democrats will tell you that she was the fourth of four choices that they wanted to come out of that Democratic primary. That being said, we need to make sure that we are prepared for that. And hopefully, and I believe it will happen, the economy in July, August of next year, with all these investments that President Trump is bringing back to America, will come to fruition. As long as the economy is good in July, August of next year, we're in good shape. But tell me what that economy looks like, and I'll tell you who wins.
Rachel, are you a blue wave skeptic, or do you see this coming?
Look, I think the analogy that Sean just gave about the doctor and the warning, it's spot on right now. Any Republicans that are looking at Tuesday's results and saying, oh, we're going to be fine, they're ignoring blaring red warning signs. I mean, Afton Bain saying that rioting is an acceptable form of protest, bragging that she, has bullied ICE officials, saying she hates Nashville and country music in Nashville. It just, the fact that she even came 9 points close to the Republican, to Matt Van Epps, is shocking. Look, I just got off the phone with a pretty senior Republican campaign official, and what this person said to me, he was very blunt about it. He said, Republicans right now are rudderless. They feel like the president and their leadership didn't go out and sell the big, beautiful bill to the country. They're concerned that they're going to get blamed for premiums going up at the end of the year if that happens. And they're concerned about what voters are feeling right now about affordability. And you have the president out there saying things like affordability is just this con. So look, privately, Republicans, they might not all admit it publicly, but there's a lot of concern and a lot of griping. And I think you're starting to see that on Capitol Hill when you have lawmakers like Elise Stefanik, who who is in Republican leadership coming out and taking shots at the Speaker of the House, saying that he would not have the votes to be Speaker anymore. I mean, these people, they're not happy right now, and I think they're sensing that a blue wave is building, and they're really concerned about what do we do to stop it. So they do need to wake up and do something soon, Batya.
So this big question
Batya,
about...
real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, to Rachel's point, I mean, Republicans need to understand the New England Patriots just played a Pop Warner football team and won by a touchdown. Yes, it's a victory. Afton Bain was a massively flawed candidate, and I think Rachel's spot on. To walk away with this and say, hey, we won by 9 as some kind of victory dance is misreading the room real big.
Rachel, I wanted to ask you about the health care subsidies, this big fight that's coming down the pike to where the Republicans are going to have to decide whether they extend these subsidies or not. Very early on in the shutdown, you had some incredible reporting that President Trump was suggesting that he was actually interested in finding some common ground with the Democrats over health care, that he does understand that this is important. Can you tell us a little bit about that reporting and where that stands right now?
Yeah, it was one of the first days of the shutdown, and the president had met with the Democratic leaders. And the anecdote that I had heard was that he said to them, look, I want to make a health care deal. And it went against everything Republican leaders were saying on the Hill at that point, which is, you know, don't give an inch to the terrorists. We do not negotiate during a shutdown. But the reality is that the president, he's not an ideologue the way that a lot of these Republicans on Capitol Hill are. You know, like, he doesn't like Obamacare. He thinks that the system is broken, it doesn't work, and that they need to replace it, like pretty much all Republicans feel as well. But look, he doesn't want premiums to go up on his watch either. We saw this over the summer, that he's very sensitive to allegations that he is in any way, you know, hurting these voters, these lower income voters, taking away benefits in particular. We saw that over the Medicaid fight this summer. And look, I think that that's why you could potentially see him sweep in and put pressure on Republicans on Capitol Hill to do something. I just don't know if they're going to listen. I talked to Republican leaders, and it's like worse than trying to get a 3-year-old to eat broccoli, as I wrote this week in my newsletter. Like, Republican leaders are saying they do not want to do this. And Sean has been talking on our show all week about how at some point he thinks the president will lean in and tell him, plug your nose, swallow, you got to do this, because otherwise there goes the midterms. If premiums go up, guess who's going to get blamed? The party in power, Batya.
Yeah, I do have to say that a lot of Republican lawmakers seem to be still having this muscle memory of we have to protect the rich, whereas Donald Trump really understands that it's the paycheck-to-paycheck American who is his base. Dan Turrentine, Sean Spicer, Rachel Bade, co-hosts of The Huddle, thank you all so much for joining me. God bless you all, and come back very soon.
Thank you, Batya.
We will.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.